Hello and welcome to the latest in our series of webinars. This particular one I'm very excited about because today we're going to introduce you to Patronum Migrate. Patronum Migrate is the world's first AI-assisted migration tool. And I've got with me Eric Downing, who is the head of our data migration team, and Eric will be performing a demonstration within a few moments. Before we get into the demonstration, just wanted to go over the capabilities of Patronum Migrate. Unlike the current Google offerings, Patronum Migrate will provide you the ability to migrate all of your email, your calendars, your Google contacts, as well as files and documents from SharePoint and Office 365. We also support the ability to perform a Google to Google migration, all of which the data will then be transferred into your new Google Workspace environment. So we're providing a full fidelity email tenanted migration service. As I mentioned, Patronum Migrate is the world's first AI-powered or AI-assisted migration tool. And the aim of the AI is really to help you as a migration engineer or as just as a system administrator moving into Google Workspace. We're going to give you information such as how much data you have within your source environment. That will then allow us to provide estimates around timeframes, how long particular volumes of data are going to take to migrate, how long it's going to take to migrate your email data over. We'll also be able to identify risks within the source environment so that you don't fall foul of those particular risks as part of the migration process. And then we'll also provide recommendations on how to perform the particular migration, how many days you should expect to perform the migration, when you should be looking to cut over. All of this can be done before any item, any email, or any file is actually migrated. We often get asked pretty soon after we've demonstrated the Patronum Migrate product, how much does it cost per user, per mailbox, per file, etc. We believe in a very simple and transparent pricing strategy. We don't hide our prices. The prices are always displayed on our website. And we're going to be offering a simple pay as you migrate option. What that basically means is we will give you the migration tool, you will perform the migration, and we will only bill you for the number of users that you have migrated, whether that's the number of mailboxes, individual users that you've migrated, or from a file migration perspective, whether it's the volume of data that you have migrated. So there's no need for any guesstimates in the process before you perform a migration, and there's no need to have unused licenses that you've purchased at the end of the migration. And we're going to provide you a very simple, you just do the migration, you then just pay for what you've utilized. No need to pre-buy or subscribe to any kind of subscription for licenses of our product. Okay, so now that we've got the pricing out of the way, I'd like to hand over to Eric, who's going to give you a full demonstration on how to configure the Patronum migration tool, how to set up a particular project, and then how to migrate data from one system to another, and how you can monitor that particular migration process. So with that, I'll just hand over to Eric.
Hello and thank you. Let's dive right in. The migration tool is a Windows executable designed to be run on any type of modern machine, be that a laptop, a desktop, or a server environment, local or remote. It is built in Golang and has some SQLite backend and of course some JavaScript and CSS. It migrates SharePoint to Google Workspace, Google Workspace for Google Workspace to Google Workspace for domain consolidations, and IMAP servers as well. For Microsoft to Workspace, we have 365 mailboxes. Of course, that includes calendar, contacts, any OneDrive, any shared mailboxes or groups, distribution lists or security groups. It also migrates, of course, SharePoint sites, team sites, including channel sites, internal permissions as well. For the workspace to workspace consolidation side, it migrates all the things you might expect: email, calendar, contacts. Of course, email comes over with one-to-one fidelity. It migrates my drive, shared drives, of course, with internal permissions, as long as the users are already created. It will migrate those permissions. Now, just a note on the Microsoft permission side: the permissions between Microsoft and Workspace don't exactly line up one by one. In the case of a conflict, it does have a matrix that maps out SharePoint permissions versus Workspace permissions. However, in the case when they conflict, it will always favor the least permissive ACL for security's sake. What we're seeing right now on the screen is the project screen. Right now, there's just one project loaded in this installation. This project has batches inside of it that are running different jobs. You can see that it's running right now. The status of the job is surfaced here on this sort of main project screen. That's the intention. You can see the running projects appear at the top right. You can always get back to this main screen by clicking this project button. And of course, if you wanted to adjust the size for larger monitors, this is here: dark mode, light mode. We'll keep it on light mode for now. The navigation bar at the top here, top left here, is intended to help operators move quickly and smoothly throughout the different aspects of the application. There's a few screens in here that govern how this runs, so it's important that the navigation is intuitive and helps users. Let's talk about the first thing on the list here, which is going to be connectors. Connectors are, of course, ways to connect to source and destination. There's not really a concept of source and destination with connectors. It's just a connection to it. We can go ahead and create a new connection, but I've got some here. So this, for instance, would be a Google Workspace connector. We can click the test auth button, and what this is going to do is this is going to show us what APIs and OAuth URLs are enabled and active in the project, just so that you know before you're running a migration that everything that should be turned on or enabled or authorized otherwise is turned on, enabled, or authorized. The connector will still work if one of these fails. For instance, you might be migrating, you might not be migrating Drive, so you may not want to enable Drive, and that's fine if this fails. It will still migrate Gmail and calendar and contacts, so on and so forth. So let's go and save that connection. It's going to be the same thing on this other connector. Regarding these connectors, there is in other aspects, there is a guide that will tell you all about connectors and how to get them working. The guide is built into the app. You don't have to go to an external website. It's all in here, and it's the exact instructions. If you follow these step by step, it will result in a fully working connector. There's also some caveats listed out in here. So sometimes when we go to create a service key or go to create a project on the Google Workspace side, we don't have, oftentimes the ability to do that for the user is disabled. So it says exactly how to go in there and enable that so that the operator can create a service account key for that. That's something we've seen happen over and over again. That's sort of, you can always quickly search for that, but I mean, this is built in, it's built in right here because it's always an issue. Other things, projects, batch setup, the discovery piece is all laid out here in plain language, easy to understand, and in one space. Going down to the advanced section, when a project is loaded, you can load this advanced section, becomes available, and right at the top it gives you a health snapshot of the machine. So the intention is to be run on a machine that is in control by the operator is fully in control over. So as such, you might want to just take a look at a few things to make sure the machine is running smoothly. And that's what this top panel will do. It tells you things like how much disk space is available, what your uptime is on the machine, where the log directories are in the database directory, any sort of errors that are overarching. So there are some API quota calendar errors in here, but as far as this is going, five jobs are running. They all pretty much got the green light. The database size is tiny right now, so there's no issues. if you are running several migrations, the database can fill up and it will auto clean itself. But in the case that you want it to auto clean faster, you can click run optimization here on the database. And that helps keep the database healthy, removing any unneeded ledger rows, and just cleaning up stuff for projects that don't exist anymore. If you're curious about how permissions might look before running anything, you could do a dry run here. If you want to reset a user on the workspace side, you can wipe their calendar, email, or drive, and that might be helpful in doing dry runs for migrations. Oftentimes we want to just migrate a couple of users and just kind of see how they look before we commit to the full batch. So this helps you kind of restart, change your selections, wipe everything, and come back to it. Sometimes we don't want to copy all of the SharePoint sites, or we have a migration running for SharePoint and we want to just run a quick one. Here, there's an ability to run just single folders out of the SharePoint. So if we don't want to migrate also the whole site, we can just choose a folder from that SharePoint site and migrate that. There's a log here for that as well. Okay, so that's advanced. Okay, so then let's go back to projects and look at one of these projects. So this project is running here. We have a couple of options here. We can edit the project. We can go straight to the logs. We can archive, delete, copy this project. We can grab all the support logs. We click grab support logs. It'll zip all those up, and you can send those off to support if you need help with anything, or you can delete it. If you're moving to another machine, you can export this project and open it in another machine, and it should open just fine. Now, the thing about that is it does not export any secrets, so no credentials get exported with that. The connectors do, but they'll be missing their JSON or any of their secrets, so it's a secure export from that perspective. Let's go ahead and just edit this project and see what this project looks like. So this is the edit screen, and this screen will be seen on new project creation as well. You'll have your connectors down here, and you will have the ability to name the project and put in a license key. The license key will be provided to you, and you can check that license, and it will tell you what is available for you to migrate in this for this particular project or domain. Here we can edit our source connectors, our source or destination connectors, change them, keep them the same. They're fine the way they are. On this page, or down here, is the source and target domain. So this lists all the for Workspace environment and Microsoft environments. It will list all the domain names or tenant names that are associated with the primary name that the connector uses. For this one, we don't have a domain mapping, so we should put a domain mapping in here. So we are moving from this domain level 3 to the sushi near me domain. We can have multiple domains as well. Like, let's say we want to take all of this citywide sound as well, and we want to add that as a domain pair that gets mapped to sushi near me. We could have that as well with no problem. Right now we don't want to do that, so we'll click remove. So we'll save this project and continue. This takes us to our batches page. Now on the batches page, what we do is we see is an all statistics panels at the top for all of the batches that are running or that have run. This gives us a historical amount of data moved, emails migrated, so on and so forth, drive files, shared drives, SharePoint files, whatever it is, how many failures have occurred. This is for all the batches. There are separate statistics chiclets, we'll call them, for each batch, but for right now, this kind of gives you an overview of the entire project. What am I running? How's my data limits? I can only migrate 500 gigs or a terabyte or something, so it's very important to keep that in mind here. For the batches themselves, we can configure a batch by clicking config. And this takes us to our page where we have the things that are migrating and their details. So they're always organized by users first, then shared drives, and then everything else, groups and so forth. So in this instance, we are migrating one user and we're migrating 4 shared drives. We can sort of decide what we want to migrate about each user by clicking these boxes on and off. I'm going to go back to a smaller view so we can see everything. So we can see that this user is migrating email, calendar, contacts, and drives. We can filter the list so that we just want to see users, so just users here. Let's say maybe we only want to see shared drives or shared mailboxes, but that doesn't exist for Workspace, so that doesn't That doesn't exist there, so we'll go back to the all view. But the idea is that you can filter this list to see what you want, in case you want to just focus in on shared drives or just users or group addresses as well. So we'll go ahead and save this. And we can't save the batch because there's active jobs right now. That's why some of this stuff wasn't loading. So generally you want to use the batches when there's not an active job running for that batch. So let's see what that, well, before we see the batch, let's take a look at some of the batch options. So there's unsaved changes, but we can't save the batch, so we're going to discard those. And those little pop-ups, those modals will appear when necessary to help the operator understand what's happening, what's going to happen if they click OK, and give them an option of going back, saving, or discarding. So if you forget to save your batch options and you navigate away from the page, that will pop up and say, hey, maybe you want to make some changes here. So typical options here on the batch options page, you can date restrict the email migration. You can store everything under a single label, maybe that you call that label migrated or what have you. For Drive, you can choose to migrate the internal ACLs, again, as long as the users pre-exist. You can migrate non-owned items. So what happens if you're migrating a user that has a bunch of stuff shared with them, but the user that shared it is not migrating? How do you resolve that? Well, the only way right now is to migrate those items as the user and make the user the owner. Again, you can migrate under a label or a folder here. You can choose to create the users at the time of migration, out of office signature aliases, many to one destination. So often we see 5 or 6 users being migrated or more being migrated to a single account for archive purposes. And that's available here as well. That's a helpful thing. Same thing with calendar. Date restrict the calendar if you like. Internal calendar ACLs. And just so everybody's super clear, it suppresses sharing notifications. So when you start migrating calendars that are shared external or internal, sorry, no external sharing, shared internally, your recipient will not get a whole bunch of notifications that, hey, so-and-so has shared a new calendar with you. That can drive people a little bit nutty. Shared drive is the option here is to put in more than 1 or 2 managers if you have that kind of need. Each manager gets 750 gigabytes a day to be migrated through that manager account. And that's it. Once you reach that limit, no more mail can be migrated in that 24 hours. You got to wait for the reset, and that's a Google API limitation. So this has the capability to stick in 2 or 3 or 4 managers to double or triple or quadruple that capability, that API throughput. Drive membership also can be migrated. So if you have members that already exist on the source and the destination, and on the source they're a member of a certain membership level or type, to that drive, that will be migrated as well. Handy thing here on the batch setup page is just so you're aware of what your domain replacements are, that is surfaced here in one place so that you can see there's some unmapped stuff down here. Just might help you answer some questions during a migration. And again, you can always get back to the project page, change the size, so on and so forth. If you want to get back to your running project, you could just click that. And if I had made some changes and navigated away from that batch setup, batch options page, it would have alerted me that there were some changes. So what does a job look like when it is migrating? We'll go ahead and click view progress here. And I've got one that's a little further along. So what happens in this is these graphs generally get refreshed every time you navigate to the page, because they're not really intended to be navigated away from and back. So they'll refresh, but you can choose to look at these drives in any kind of time period you want. Maybe you want to migrate overnight or something, or you've got it going for a few days. You can select this 24-hour one. This one obviously hasn't been migrating more than about a half hour, but we can see that there's data moved. This is email, or sorry, this left one is data moved. The middle one is files, and the one on the right is emails migrated. We can see more detailed statistics information here at the top in these little chiclets, and they will give us an overview of this batch only. So where the other statistics view was projects view, a complete overview, this is just the batch. So you can see what's going on in just this batch. Some interesting information is surfaced here. How many email messages failed? Not sure why they failed, but we have a log we can go in that's easily accessible to look at. This gives me an indication that I need to go look at that log. The throttle signals as well. So these are probably they happen quite a bit more often than you'd think if you're looking at logs. They don't always surface them in every migration tool. So, but they're surfaced here, and if you hover over that log, that'll tell you what the last throttle signal was. And of course, this one's related to calendar. That's expected in this case, and I'm glad it's there so I could demo it. It's not always clear when API issues are happening, and also it's expected here because I've been hitting this domain pretty hard with calendar migrations, just doing some stress testing, how fast I can tune the migration tool. It is tunable if you feel like being a power user. There are instructions related to how to tune the migration up and down based on API thresholds. I don't really recommend that, but you can if you like typing in things in terminals. Moving down through the migration rows, we can see our drive migrations are running. Two are done with no errors, so we get a success. We don't see any files migrated here because this particular batch already had these two migrated, so there's no reason to migrate anymore. There is a mode for these migrations where you can choose to do a synchronize, which will mirror the source and destination. So that is possible to delete files on the source if they don't match the destination. Or you can just choose add new, which will just add everything that's different from the source side. That's also a caveat because you could end up with duplicate files that way. So just be conscious and when that's being chosen, and everything is surfaced in the logs, which we'll get to in a second. I want to fold down the mailbox and show that these things are migrating calendar contacts in Google Drive for every user. We have source and destination. We have a status window that shows that it's running, and a summary here of the files and emails and so on and so forth that have been running. So we can click in these logs here, and these give us immediate access to the last couple thousand lines of the logs, which is generally what we want to see. If we need to do any deeper digging, there is a link to the log folder down here at the bottom. The log folders are named very easily, so you can see what log it pertains to. When we're running a couple of hundred users through here, we want to be able to quickly get to the user that you look at the logs for the user that we're concerned about. The logs surface a lot of interesting information. It's not quite trace, but it does give you everything you need to know to validate what's going on, and in terms of the API and the message rate, success or failure. Right now, the view to this live log is set to all. So everything that's coming through here, calendar, email, contacts, drive, is what we're seeing here. If we just wanted to see the calendar, we could click on calendar and notice that it just is calendar entries here. So not a ton of those because, again, this has reached an API limitation because I'm not being very nice to the target domain. The files are just the files here, and it's color coded, of course, and so we can just see what files are being migrated in those details. Same thing with email, contacts, nothing to do on contacts, and then system logs. And system logs would indicate any kind of overall API errors or connection issues. There's nothing here now because everything's fine, so nothing to worry about here. What else? The thing that sets this apart from other migration tools is here in the discovery. So there is a discovery section for each project, and clicking any of these, discover all or just the things you want to discover, will result in a screen that looks very similar to this, but with your data. Clicking the Analyze Discovery button, we'll go ahead and click that now, will send this discovery report out to the company's version of Sonnet, Claude. It will analyze the migration, and it will provide you with a report about the migration particulars, watch points, caveats. It will give a estimation of how long the migration should take. Just from a migration standpoint, of course, that's not going to include anything like project management, change management, talking with end users, troubleshooting, none of that stuff. Just the straight data move it will give you based upon I think it's a gigabit per second synchronous data. Anyways, you'll never migrate faster than your line speed generally, or anywhere near a gigabit connection. But so it will tell you how long the migration should take, all things being equal. So here we have the discovery report that AI analyzed. At the top here, it's just a summary in plain language of what's being moved. We have some data volumes here as far as how much data and per data type, a migration duration estimate, and some caveats. So it's calling out that the accounts need to be warmed up. Of course, when we're migrating, we want to create the accounts and have those sitting there for at least a week before we really start filling them up with data. That's what Google wants us to do, Microsoft as well. Talks about a cutover window, and then it starts listing some issues to be aware of based on that data, and organized by high, medium, low. So we've got some medium issues here, some low issues, some high issues. So what it's finding here is that there's no matching shared drives on the target side. So we have to take that into account. Of course, that's a very obvious thing. But it goes into that saying that this could add some time to a migration. Now, for this particular migration, it's not a lot of data, so probably safe to just kind of overlook that. But for larger migrations, it will call it out and it'll say, listen, this is going to take a long time to migrate because of the amount of data. Same thing with source to destination user count. If it finds that the same amount of users on the source don't exist on the destination, it's going to call it out and just make sure that that's being aware of. And a lot of these things are obvious things. However, because as migration operators, there is so much to remember, it's very, very handy to have this reference available to make sure that you're kind of not forgetting everything. It's very easy to overlook something very simple, which can profoundly affect the migration. So this AI report attempts to gather all those things and put them in front of you. Right now, it's just a pop-up screen, but if I click download report, this report will be in the form of a PDF in my downloads folder. Well, let's see what happens if I just click download. Does that show? Yeah, it sure does. So shows in black and white right now for some reason, but I guess my destination is the printer. But if we choose a PDF, we can see the color version. And it's basically the same thing, just in a PDF form, so we can print that out and have it handy. Also good to have for stakeholders and other people involved in the migration. It suggests some next steps for this migration, and of course an owner and a due date columns for the operator to fill out. So we'll go ahead and cancel that. And yeah, that's about it. That covers most of it. There's a lot more that's going on under the hood, and there's a lot more in development. So stay tuned, and thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. So what do we need to do next? If you're interested in Patronum Migrate, please get in contact. We can schedule a demonstration. We can give you 10 free licenses in order to try the Patronum Migrate product. So yeah, get in contact, and thank you very much for joining this particular webinar.